So on the scouting video you're about to see, I basically went out into a swamp that we hunt. I came in from the north, crossed a frozen creek, and made it onto an island out here. And the way this is set up is this is hardwood timber up here. This is all swamp down here, all the way around it in the area that splits this creek and this river. So this is all swamp ground. Off to the east, there's actual oaks that the deer feed in, probably 3/4 of a mile in that direction. Swamp on the opposite side of the river and all lowland up and around the river. There's one high piece of ground here right along the river that we're referring to as our island. What we found on this island is there was a primary scrape on this island right here. We hung a camera on it scouting, and what we had bucks that were coming onto this island and approaching from this direction and then looping to come to the scrape. Several bucks on video doing that. We scouted. We scouted this swamp out and we found that there was a buck that was bedding out here. We're going to call this buck One-Eyed Jack. We have several trail cam pictures of the deer. The deer's missing his right eye, so he's very noticeable, very distinct deer when you see him. Anyways, what we ended up doing is we bow hunted out here this past year, and we had a tree stand set here. The problem with that tree stand is when the winds were a little bit finicky, sometimes the deer would loop a little far and catch our wind. Or they would simply enter between us and the scrape, and there's too much thick cover in here and we just couldn't get a shot. So what we ended up doing is we came in here post-season, and that's the video that you're going to see of me scouting. And crossed the frozen creek, entered the island, and proceeded to come on the island. And strategically, I built a ground blind right here on the edge of the river and the island. And then I also built a ground blind out in here. And I'm going to explain to you why. So by having an entry route like this to come onto the island and set up here right next to the river, we take advantage of a couple things. We're far enough from his loop when he comes in, when he's trying to get downwind of the scrape to approach it, that he's not going to scent us. We're not going to have the same issues we had here. Because what happens in the river is we have some thermals that will come out here to the river. If the river water is warmer than the air, it will create a draft out and it will pull our scent away. And we're literally, as you can see in the video, right on the edge of the river. So we set up here. Now that setup is good for any west wind, north wind, northwest wind that we might have. The problem is what happens early in the season when we have a south wind coming from this direction. So then I stepped back and I looked at the situation and I said I needed to have a spot over in here. The problem was these are mostly all dead trees. We got hit really hard with the emerald ash borer. So I found a clump of 4 trees out in here that I feel is far enough away if this buck on an east, or I should say on a south wind, where the wind's coming like this, where even if he comes out this way to loop and come into the island, I can still get a shot at him here. I don't think he's going to come behind me because this is fairly flooded and this has a lot of blowdowns out here. So in the video you're going to see I come in and I do the first setup here right along the edge of the river, and this is for any westerly or north wind type of a direction. And then I move out over here and I do this for any type of south wind or even an east wind direction, where that buck might loop this slightly to try to come onto this island. And this stretch right here between the river and this stand is maybe about a 150-yard stretch. So I didn't really narrow it in, but what we're going to do is go back, and there's a bunch of deadfall out in here, and we're going to lay some more of this deadfall, or maybe even push some standing timber over to make sure when he comes this direction it pushes him a little bit closer to where we're set up. So keep in mind we have about 9 months now, or I should say 8 months, for these deer to get used to anything we did out here, anything we did here. And what we didn't do, we didn't go in and clear the area out. We used timber that was in there and anything that was dead or movable that was on the ground, and created this spot here in a 4-trunk clump of trees, and created this spot right by a deadfall. So we're going to show you producing those 2 spots so you have a better idea of what we're doing here. And then we're also going to show you this fall going back in. We're going to video those and show you what they look like when they're grown up in the fall, and actually hunt out of them and see if we can kill a buck coming across this island to this scrape. It's not real far from the scrape to the bedding area, so we were having pretty decent activity the last half hour before dark. So fingers crossed this fall that nobody moves on us and screws this up. But this is quite a long walk in, and you have to cross kind of a nasty swamp and a creek to get there. So we think we're going to be by ourselves. So hope you enjoy this video, and we're going to show you how we set this up. So we've got the main run comes through here. There's actual 2 scrapes over there that we can't see because they're covered up. But we're looking right now directly south. So we have a river here. Behind us is north, right where you see my pack there, right where that big tree is. We're going to go ahead and erect a ground blind there. The trail, though, basically we're standing on, it comes right across the top of this hill and runs right along the river. I mean, for a deer coming through here, they can scent check anything back to the north here, which is where the foot trail is, hunters come in on, but most guys won't cross all this wet stuff because it's about waist deep. But yeah, they can scent check anything north, northwest, northeast coming through here and know there's no danger back along the river. So we're going to get a setup there. They're going to have 9 months to get used to it. We'll try to, I guess, stay out of here. We'll maybe hang a camera in here late summer, see what's using this run, see if we have some daytime activity of mature bucks. And then hopefully early season slip in here and shoot them at about 12 yards from the ground. So I'm standing on the run, the deer come across this, and they come across facing us, going to behind us. And we'll pan across, here's the river, there's our makeshift blind. We'll plant those grasses along the base of it, they'll grow up in and through it. We'll trim some, obviously, branches with leaves this fall. That should brush it in pretty well. They have 9 months to get ready, or to get used to it, and then that run goes right down through here and off into the swamp there. Let's go stand in the blind and I'll show you how close we are to the river. So I'm in the blind here. We're looking out over this piece of high ground that runs here along the river. The trails are about 12 yards in front of us here. We'll look down, you can see here's the blind that we built. Here's where I'm standing. There's the river. If I take 2 steps backwards, I fall about 4 foot in the river. So we know obviously nothing's going to come from behind us, and that's going to help our thermals. When the thermals go and are attracted to the water, the heat, the rising thermals should pull our wind out there, and any north variant of a wind should take our scent right out across there. So there's almost 0% chance of them winding us, but yet they still feel pretty confident coming across here because they're going to be walking quartering into the wind the whole way through here, either with or quartering into the wind, and using the river as a security. So next time we show you this, we'll show it to you late summer, early fall. We'll brush this in. We will have a camera running out here better part of summer, and hopefully have a picture of One-Eyed Jack and several other bucks using this. So now we're going to go over that way past that scrape to that end of the island where they kind of come up on here. So we're going to now do a setup for a south wind where we can get out there and where they can't nab us if they're going to come and follow the river on a south wind. So we'll show you that setup next. Okay, we're at the second spot now, and we're setting up for a south wind, a ground hunt on a south wind. We've got a clump of pretty big sized maples here, growing together, some maples, and it looks like there might be an old ash tree here. But anyways, it's a 3-tree clump. It's got a big enough space in the middle that we can set, a little seat. There's some good growth around it. But one of the tips I'm going to show you that I use quite often, especially because in a lot of the state ground you can't legally cut branches, I use zip ties, and I'm going to show you what I mean here in just a sec. So here's a pack of pretty good sized zip ties. So what I'll do is I'll actually take the zip ties, and you can see all this brush in front of me here. Instead of cutting it out, I'll actually zip tie it all together. So I'll still keep the cover. I'll keep the leaf cover and the brush. But by zip tying it together, I can create little pockets or little openings that I can shoot through. Zip ties even work well if you want to take small branches, kind of like this one laying sideways here. And if you want to go ahead and zip tie that up to another tree because it's a live branch and it's creating cover. If you want to zip tie it to another tree, then when the leaves pop, it gives you cover. But I'll even go out in front here, show you here. We got this little bush right here, and I'm going to zip tie a lot of those together right now. So when they grow up this fall, there's a nice clump of cover there. The deer, I expect the deer to come from through the edge there, following the river, and then they're going to go up onto the island over there. So I'm going to need to zip tie brush together in a few spots for shooting lanes, maybe bust some dead stuff down. I can see, I'm looking to the right here, and where was it? There's a rub I could see. I don't know if I can zoom in on it, but right kind of in the center of that clump behind it, there's a rub there. Sorry for being shaky, too many cups of coffee. But the deer come down through this funnel here too, and then they'll come over through here and up to the island. There's quite a few rubs, but we'll go ahead and zip tie these. We'll show you some of that, and I'll talk about manipulating those trails too, because there's a couple trails that parallel the river. We want to bring them out closer to where we can get a shot here. So with all the deadfalls in here, we ought to be able to kind of clog that trail up, create an obstruction, and then we'll clear some brush around it to the other trail. And then hopefully as they follow the river there, then they'll all end up on that one run that comes right here at about 22 yards. Another tip for you here, if you're building a ground blind, you can take advantage of almost anything out here that's dead. It's easier to pick up and carry, but I'm going to show you a lot of these dead. We had this emerald ash borer. They kill a lot of these ash trees in these swamps. So you can peel the bark off these trees and actually use it to brush in a blind. And I'll show you how that works here. So here's an old ash tree. As you can see, this tree is dead. We're going to go ahead and peel that bark, and then we're going to take it over to our ground blind that we're constructing. And I'm going to show you how we kind of hang it or weave it in there. Creates really good cover. And it's lightweight, and it works so well when you use it in these ground blinds. It covers a lot of space. So we'll peel that off and show you how it looks. So here's an old dead ash tree. I'm going to show you how you can, if you work your hand up, you can bust off really big. I'll step back so you can see how big that is. But really big chunks of bark all the way around this thing. This is a dead tree anyway, so you can use dead items to build a ground blind on public land. But when we get all these weaved into our blind, you're going to see what a difference this makes. So here we got the bark. It's probably 18 feet of bark here. So we're going to haul that over, add it to what we got, and show you what it looks like. But you can see this tree is pretty well stripped, quite a ways up. And it's dead anyways. Probably we come back in the spring, if we get a high wind, this tree's down like everything else around it here. So I'm standing on the deer trail right now. So for a south wind, that blind should be perfect. We left enough natural trees in and amongst it. When they leaf out, it should take away the big blobby look about it. But we're going to come back. We're going to plant some native grasses, and keep in mind we're in the swamp. So I mean, there's weeds around us here, like look at these. That are 4 foot high. So when you come in here early October, it's going to be probably waist high grass and weeds, which will help cover up some of that so it doesn't look so blobby. But then as the weeds and stuff go away, you know, we're going to trim some branches or some leafy stuff and weave it in there to give it a little more cover. But so we've got a setup now for a north, west, east, and now we have a setup for a south wind. All of them watching these runs that kind of funnel in right along this river that these deer use. So they're coming from the bedding to go out to feed up on some oak ridges. And realistically, I'll pan over here so you can see what a mess this is. We jumped a nice buck, maybe only bedded 100 or so yards that way this fall. A lot of buck activity, a lot of good bucks in here, but you know, we're right on the edge of a bedding area. So they're getting out of the bedding area and they're following this edge of this river for security, where they can wind everything out here on a north, northwest, northeast wind. they can wind anything out here as they venture over towards those oaks. And obviously on a south wind, they're going to swing a little bit wider, so they're probably going to come right here down this run, which brings us within probably 20 yards of that blind. And behind that blind, you can see there's blowdowns. There's a series of big blowdowns, so it kind of funnels them here, but they can still scent check this island and this scrape before they get to it. So we'll see what happens. We'll show you this blind again this fall, and hopefully we can show you some activity as we hunt out of it.